This is the Arpeggiator tab, and it's the same on all of our melodic products, so I'm going to show it to you using Grand Piano Suite. To turn on the Arpeggiator, click this button here. You can adjust velocities using your mouse here, and note lengths. Just kind of drag as you click, and it kind of randomizes a little bit. This hold button allows any note that's pressed to be added to the currently running arpeggio. So it's just going to do that one. I can just keep adding notes and it's going to arpeggiate all of them until I turn that off. Latch is going to indefinitely hold any notes that are played simultaneously. So I press those three notes and it's just going to arpeggiate those three notes. And then I'm going to press three different notes and it's going to switch until, again, you turn that off. MIDI through is really cool because it also allows what's being played on the keyboard to be heard in addition to the arpeggiated sound. So you'll hear this chord, and that chord rings out. Whereas if I turn it off, you're not going to hear that chord. So that's a really cool function for doing live stuff where you want to hear the chords and you want to hear the arp, and it all kind of mixes together. Down here in the blue you have steps. So as you can see up on the top left, the step number is changing all the way up to 32. I generally like to keep it at 16. Rate is how fast, according to your DAW, it syncs with your DAW, or you can adjust the global BPM in settings if you're using the standalone. It goes really fast, all the way down to full steps. There's triplets and other stuff in there too. Octave, right now I have it set to 1 octave, so you can hear it jumping between 2. And that's 3 octaves. That's so cool because it's playing a whole bunch of notes that I could never play on piano. So I'm going to put it back to 1. Swing adjusts the feel of the playback, so you can hear it almost stutters a little bit. So that's a cool way to bring some humanity into your arpeggio. Step size is kind of hard to understand, but it helps if you just look at what's happening here on the velocities window. So it's skipping because I put the step size up to 3, and I can put the step size down to -1, and it will run backwards. This is a way to just kind of randomize a pattern that you've already got built. I'm going to just leave the step size at 1, and then it'll march forward just like you're used to. Range low and high is a really cool way to split the keyboard. So the left hand, it gets ignored by the arpeggiator, and you can play full chords or big octaves or whatever, and then the right hand on above whatever value you select is triggered by the arpeggiator. So that's a really cool way, especially if you're good at playing piano, you can split the keyboard. The low side with range low, and you can do it on the high side with range high. The direction of the arpeggiator is easy to understand. I'm going to press 3 notes, so it's just going to go up. If I switch it to down, it's going to invert that, and if I go up and down. So another cool one is random, which kind of bounces around. And then chord gets really interesting when we get into pitch offsets, which I'll show you in a bit. It just kind of machine guns that, but if you're adjusting your velocities, you can kind of get some really cool effects using chord in conjunction with velocities and note lengths with your patterns here. Now let's talk about the pattern builder. So this is a really cool way to get really interesting ideas really fast, because it does some generation for you. I'm going to click 8 step, and I'm going to just roll the dice and see what I get. So it's just going to loop those 8 steps again and again. And I can do that with note lengths as well. So you get a lot of humanity in that kind of auto-generating arpeggiation. Then you can move them around like this until you find something that you're really happy with. You can keep rolling the dice, roll the dice. Here in pitch offsets, you have the dice, which randomly generates in your chosen scale a bunch of these values. You have an octave button, which restricts it to 1 or 2 octaves. So now when I roll the dice, it's actually going to use the full 24 steps. This button down here resets, so it clears it back to 0. This is where you pick your scale. This checkbox restricts whatever is currently drawn in the pitch offsets field to your chosen scale. So right now if I draw like that, it's not pentatonic, but if I click that, now it suddenly is pentatonic. This drop-down is called Format, and it basically is what patterns repeat. So you have an A, B pattern, and that is dependent on your bar size here. So if you have 4 steps, it's going to be 4, 4, 4 of the same, and then it's going to do 1 different. And you have some different options down here. Random is just going to make a totally random set. The plus minus buttons here will transpose whatever you've got in that field up or down a half step. And so you can click that quite a bit to change that dramatically. And then these arrows move your pattern left and right in that field. So let's say that I've got a pattern that I'm really excited about. And I don't want to just bake it into this preset. I want to save that and use it in other presets. So I go to the Save button here, call it whatever I want to call it, pentatonic. It's going to save it in my art profiles. And then, even if I make a bunch of changes to it, roll the dice a bunch of times and it's different, I can go to Load and load that pentatonic, and it will always be there. So you can save as many of those as you want to, create really cool melodies, and use them across a bunch of different presets.